Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season 1 finale of Clevatess. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I'll talk about more, the future of Clevatess, when we get to the end of this, but we're immediately picking up where the last episode left off, where Clint was walking away, because for him, it's just like, right, why did I even bother coming here? I don't care about humans. Why did I attach myself to this little thing? Who cares? Like, this is all, once again, I'm kind of tap dancing to someone else's beat, and it's just like, I'm just going to go back home. And he's like, he's saying all this. And I don't know if because he's almost surprised when he hears Alicia talk back. He's like, oh, wow, you're alive. But it's like, I don't know whether that's just because, he's just thinking to himself, not realizing the psychic link between them is still up. Or maybe on some level, I don't know, maybe if you could read deep into that, he was looking for an excuse to turn back. And he almost said all that hoping Alicia would convince him otherwise. But for Alicia, it's like, come on, even if you don't believe in all this hero crap, turn around and look Luna in the eyes. What color are Luna's eyes? What do you see? And Luna is crying, but Luna starts getting up and starts reaching out for Clint. It's kind of like, are you really going to abandon Luna after everything? The fact is, everyone wants to look down on inferior species. Look at Luna now. You wanted to study humans to see what they were capable of, whether they were ready, worthy of being saved from your damnation and destruction. But look at Luna. Does that look like an inferior species to you? Are you really just going to walk away and just abandon? And like I said, I think on some level there is a part of Clint. Like I said, I could be reading too much into it. I do believe on some level he wanted to be convinced not to turn away. But it's also, there's something beautiful. I kind of got a little teary-eyed when Luna stands up and it's just kind of almost fell over first, but then stands up and it's just yeah, that's humanity for you. We'll stand up even when the odds are against you. And we see that with Alicia pushing through Drell's fire and attacking him, rushing over to a weapon, but he's about to attack her, and then Nell throws a block of stone in him, and that gives her the opening. He tries to attack her again. I love the I'm a sucker for a good epic slide, and her just sliding against the water and then just doing the whole I'm also a sucker for someone drawing their weapon back. That's why, Strike Raid is one of my favorite techniques in Kingdom Hearts, because you can just summon the Keyblade back to you. That's how it works. You can just dematerialize and materialize it in your hand, and that's what makes that technique really cool when you think about, how the implementation of that. But either way, just, the fact is, it's just, her hand is still on her blade, and she just draws it back, and in that moment, Drell's whoa, that magic blood, and then she's just powering herself up for one more strike. And then, she does it, and, just as he comes to, attack her, she, attacks him as well, because for her, it's I don't care about the BS of whether or not, what it means to, be a hero. Even if the hero's legacy is BS or whatever, it doesn't stop. The fact is that I am a hero, and I know I am, and I'm embracing it. Even if that title was some falsehood in the past, I believe what it means to be a hero, and I'm holding tight to it. And then she proceeds to attack him, but she gets hurt in the process, and it's oh, how did this whole situation play out? But he's Drell is saying stuff no matter what you do, these are your limits. There was only so far you can go. This is where it ends for you. And he's coming in to try and finish Alicia, and she's this is, what did I expect? Yada, 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 limit. She's you're the one who limited yourself. Everything up until this point, you've used the excuses of the legends of the past of being they're horse shit, they're this, they're that. You use that to limit yourself because you weren't good enough to be a hero, and you want to use that as a perfect excuse. This heroes are BS anyway, so I couldn't make it as one. As that's your own fault. And in the end, she's I could hear the sound from the blade. Her strike wasn't meant for Drell, it was meant for the blade. And I was oh no! I shouldn't have doubled back. They played the long play with that, but I was like, it has to be how this plays out. I should have just kept, I should have doubled and tripled down, but I start second guessing myself. I'm like, they hadn't done anything with it yet, so maybe her hammer didn't. It's like, nope, they waited to the finale to be like, nah, the hammer did hit. It's just been chipping away there. And it's like, who knows if it's been taking any substantial damage subsequently every strike, but this particular strike broke it. And I think that speaks volumes about Alicia. She could hear it, but he couldn't. He was so wrapped up in his power, and I guess that just shows, like, I mean, to be fair, her father was very gifted. He had a very, like, he was very talented, and I think maybe you were supposed to take away, like, yeah, some of that talent there, that she could hear it. She could hear the sound of the blade, like, the sound, like, she could tell, like, it was there, and she just knew she had where to strike. So I also talked about that too. Like I love in a fight when it's like you build upon like someone else, you exploiting like the weakness like brought about by someone else. So it was a concerted effort. And in that moment, Drell lost his blade. But for Alicia, she's giddy because she's like, we don't even have to do anything to you. You were being backed by like the Lord of like a dark, you're being backed by a dark beast. But now that you've been hampered, the fact is you no longer have this powerful treasure. I'm wondering how Valden is going to react. And holy shit, was that metal as hell. That was excruciatingly brutal. He's literally ripped the flesh. You just see the undermeat to his, like, to the fleshy underbits. I was like, Jesus Christ. And it's just like being stripped away at him. And just like, I think it's poetic that the last thing he's seeing is like, you know, Margot. And he's just thinking about like, I think it was like, once again, it played into his insecurities and fears. Because I think it stemmed from, you know, him seeing what happened to Margot, and I think like believing like if something like that could happen to Margot, I'm here just as a substitute. I think so. He never felt like he really deserved to be in that hero spot because he was always filling in for Margot, and then like he let the whole belief in heroes are BS and the legends are BS that he kind of gave up on trying to be a hero because he never felt like he deserved it because he always felt like he was in Margot Shadow. That's why you also needed to go out of your way to kill him, was just to prove a point to yourself, to feed your own insecurities and justify being like, right, like heroes aren't real. This is all built on some falsehood. Because I think he'd also built Margot up in his head. But once again, this was like your brother in arms. This was your friend. And so for him to kind of slip away from you, it's like, yeah, you're not going to the same place as my guy. You're going to burn in hell. If not, you know, if there's no hell, you're definitely like being relegated to the void of nothingness, you know. And just like that final bit where it's just like his body's getting squashed up, and then all that's left is like it like kind of pops, and all that's left is his skull, and it explodes, and all those crystals are left. I was like, wow, you're done. Damn. I was like, cool and good. And it feels so poetic that it was like essentially a 1-2 punch from the princess and Alicia that ended this. So I thought that was beautiful and poetic. So but now that he's gone, they kind of essentially like Rode kind of runs out and goes like, right, Drell is dead. Alicia defeated him. So it kind of ends the war and his people retreat. And we saw the iron, the wizard who can use the iron. I love that I was like wondering, like we hadn't seen her like for the past couple episodes. I guess she's been there the entire time. Be like, oh, it's over. Cause we also never found out about Insect Guy. I'm pretty sure Alicia didn't kill him. He just got knocked out. So I don't know if they locked him up afterwards or whether he did get killed, but we don't know if he's still out there, whether he made some big escape or not, but it all came to an end. I guess Rode didn't see that Alicia's hand, like, because she did cover her hand after it kind of got sliced up, but I don't think her, the princess, saw it, because I don't think anyone saw, like, in the heat of everything, her reattaching her hand, because later on Clint's like, hey, we're going to keep hush-hush about, like, that power and stuff like that. That's why he leaves her wounds in a position where, like, they're not fully healed. He'll probably wait to fully heal them, but it's like you got to keep up the appearances of like you are just some regular humanoid. Because Drell was the only one that noticed the magic blood. They went under the way to show that he noticed it, but no one else did. So when it's all said and done, though, Clint comes out with Luna because he says like, oh, Valdi. Was it Evaldine, like the dragon, he's not going to show up because magic blood is like so limited in power. It's not like, even though there's all that blood in the air from Drell, like it's not enough for him as a means to kind of like, summon and stuff. I mean, it makes sense because Clint's exactly the same way. Like, he could only make that little like blood shadowy version of himself when he was communicating with like Alicia in a physical sense. So like, it's not enough for Valden to like show up in a meaningful way, so he's not going to. Does make a little bit of appearance, but we'll get to that in a second. But obviously the princess is seeing her son, and Clint stops her. I was like, are you just gonna like, I was like, how's this gonna play out? Like, I was like, there's no way the queen's just gonna, the princess is just gonna be okay with you just taking off with her son. So I'm like, how is this gonna play out? And it's like, nah, like Clint puts him down. It's like, right, a king kind of has to return on his own. And Luna like calling out like mom, and then like Luna running over to his mom. It's like actually really touching and beautiful. Mother and child reunited. So victorious and good stuff all around. But then we had Valden come to Clint. He's like, yo, Tor's going to awaken soon. You have no idea what you've done. Kind of get in the middle of this, like, and I think it was Clint that was like, we're enemies. Like, don't get it twisted. Like, I'm coming after, like, because he's like, yo, if you're involved in this, I'm like, they're both going to be at war. Now, where Zathir stands in the middle of this is going to be interesting, considering like last episode Clint said Zathir kind of knew what was what, and Gart was here to kind of be the overseer to see the conclusion of this. So Zathir might be viewing through his eyes, or maybe he has to go back and report to Zathir everything that went down. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see where that kind of goes going forward. But the conversation between Clint and Alicia about all of this, it's like, what is the truth behind like this extinct humanoid species, the true heroes? Why were they the only ones that could be heroes and not like these potential descendants? Like, what happened? And for Clint, it's like, I don't know. The only truth is the history, the true history, not the one that's kind of been rewritten to kind of perpetuate these legends and stuff, but the one that calls for like the king to be manipulated by the Tor and everything. So the real Tor he has might have the answers, but it's locked. There is a key, but the key potentially goes to a different volume, which is like interesting. Because I'm like, was the key with the book, or was it had to be, right? Because like, where else would Clint have gotten it? So I'm like, not unless it was like something that was on the king's body as it burned into the ashes again. But I wonder if there are going to be any issues. I guess maybe like whatever like kept it in place, and whatever essence acted as kind of the maybe that was like a defense mechanism. So like maybe the book isn't necessarily sentient, because I'm like, you're not worried about it like causing problems again. But like maybe there's a greater power of Tor in play, but now that the book has been removed from its place, Tor doesn't have access to it, because maybe Clint's kind of almost got like his power preventing Tor from doing anything. Because I'm like, probably would be dangerous to keep that around, but if it's like kind of been mitigated by like it being in Clint's possession, or maybe because of everything that's going down, like Tor no longer has access to this book. So, but the thought theory then becomes like, well, there's got to be other volumes out there as well. So I guess the future holds like a little bit of a collecting mission of trying to collect these books, find the corresponding book with the key. But that also means like there's got to be a key for this book, so meaning there's got to be keys for the other books as well. So going to be a search for keys in books. Some probably have one and not the other. Some might have both of them, but some might be a different key for a different book. How many people actually have the right key for the right book? So that's a whole complicated set of two different items you kind of have to look for going forward. So, and obviously this one's so important, but it's also like that becomes like that typical like book thing and like video games and stuff like that. Is this volume 1, or is this like volume 7 and you got to collect the rest of them? Do you need all of them? You probably do for like the full picture. Once again, how many volumes are there? Is it 2? Is it 3? Whatever the case may be. And then finally, we had the queen summoning our trio of Clint, Alicia, and Nell. And they make their way over, and she wants to give a proper thanks. She's now been positioned as queen, obviously, acting in a stead until her son is old enough to rightfully take the throne. But when that's all said and done, though, they're being thanked, and Nell is very apologetic because she's from a quote-unquote low-born position. She felt bad, like, I'm not deserving of, having fed your baby. I'm so sorry about that. But the queen is obviously like, no, don't be like, I was so scared whether my child was still alive and if they were starving or not, but you took care of them, you fed them. I will always be appreciative of that. I will never like be caught up in some BS like that. Like, you were the reason my child was like taken care of and healthy. So if I can do anything for you, what do you want? And I'm curious what Nell's kind of like, no, I don't need anything. Alicia was about to say something. I'm curious what she was planning on. And Clint's like, well, if that's the case, we could have anything. I'm like, what are you going to ask for? I was like, are you going to try and take Luna? Because there's no way. Like, I was like, I thought the thing was like, oh, we're going to continue the journey with Luna. I'm like, how are you going to do that? Mom's still alive, and Mom's not going to just let Luna out of her. It's interesting too, because like she probably will just keep the name Luna because Luna responds to it, but also it's like they never got around to properly naming her child. So, no, didn't she say like her? Was it her, the king, that said like, I think it was her who said like her child's real name is Tot. So maybe it might be a combination of the two, like Tot, Luna, and the hiding royal family's like last name and stuff, so maybe that's something to it. But what Clint wants at the end is, he's like, I want to be Luna's magic instructor. And it's like, well, that gives you the position of like, well, you're kind of still getting to do what you wanted to, and that was just stay near Luna and also observe. But obviously, like, the royal family is intrinsically tied to this tour stuff. They were kind of the puppets for the tour, so there's something there. So it also gives you the excuse to kind of continue doing what you wanted. You kind of still get to be by the whole point was like, I want to be kind of the right hand to the king so I can watch and so it still serves a similar purpose and stuff like that. Plus you get to be somewhat near the queen to probably whisper in her ear, especially considering she's grateful to you for saving her child. So and then the ending is involved like showing shots from this show but also playing the opening. It's so interesting that like reverse that's kind of been happening recently, because I just happened to something else that ended. But yeah. But then we get the post-credit scene where it seemed like the way Clan and Alicia are dressed, specifically because she's meant to look more like the Heidi and people, that I'm like wondering, like, it seemed like maybe the way I was looking at it, I'm like, are they infiltrating like Heidi and like academy or something, and they're infiltrating as students? I didn't know if that's what it was, because I wasn't paying attention whether Clint had changed himself like that. But I think Alicia was disguised, because it's got to be something like only Heidians can get in, and maybe this correlates to something with Luna, but it most likely probably has something to do with the tour stuff and the books and finding out on that front, finding out more about the history of the world. That was my interpretation of it, but yeah, the fact is, you specifically notice with her nose and her ears that she's supposed to have Heidi and like features, and I was like, interesting. What other reason would that be if not infiltrating? Just the questions, like I said, what is that they are in fact infiltrating? We'll potentially find out in the future. So the future of this series is, the episode just came out. Literally, it dropped like maybe an hour or so ago at the time of recording. It's probably a little more. So news, like at least, like I said, at least at the time of recording this, the news, there is apparently some leak out there from some source that like breaks a lot of like anime news or releases anime news, saying that a season 2 of the anime is currently in production. But like it hasn't been like, I don't think there's anything like official. That's the closest to like, but it's like an unofficial thing. So I don't know if like I said, I'm stressing the point that nothing officially has said anything at this point. So that's why I'm like, take it with a grain of salt. There is more story to tell. I did try to look it up just to see how much of the manga this has covered, because based on Wikipedia, there are currently 10 published volumes. Once again, that's not including any chapters that have not been published into like, they might not have been compiled into an 11th volume yet. Maybe they're kind of in the middle of what would essentially become volume 11. So just kind of keep that in mind. But I don't know how much of the manga this anime this season covered. I'd assume anywhere between like maybe up to 5, because 5 seems to be like a good middle ground. So like potentially we might have covered at least half of what's the manga story currently, probably a little less. I'm basing that purely on like other things like Kaiju number 8. Like I said, it also depends on like pacing, how much stuff I was reading something, I don't know how true this is, like about like certain, like the main story is there, yes, but there's certain side stories that were cut, and so, once again, things are like heavily condensed for an anime, so that all has to be like brought into consideration. But like, I don't know the stuff I was looking at. I don't know if it was like like Google's weird sometimes. It'll be like, oh, this is talking about, it's like AI overview bullshit. So like it said like, oh, this is in reference to Clevatess, but like that could have been bullshit associated with something else. Like I've had sometimes results give me completely different results if I change the wording of the Google. It's a whole thing. It's a whole diatribe, but that's why I'm like, I don't know. Oh yeah, also there's the whole, I completely forgot about too, like another stinger element is the old the blood bubble that Clevatess is in, even though he's not, because like some people came over and one guy was like, hey, leave it alone, and even said specifically like what's left in here is meant to be, because Clint, well, is there even a point to that email? But I guess it's like, right, he wants to probably ease people's minds by letting them think like, oh, you've got me captured and that's where I am, because like, well, Valden knows you're out and about. Zafir most likely knows you're out and about. So it's like, that's, I guess, just for humanity's sake of fooling them to think they've got you trapped and just leave you alone, but whatever. I did kind of forget about that. But anyway, getting back to the point I was making, like, maybe some of that information will come out either later today, because, you know, I usually find out that stuff because, like, I'll Google it and maybe some people talk about it on forums and stuff, like people who've read the manga versus, like, watch the anime. So, like I said, I don't know how much of the manga we've covered and how much is left to be animated for a potential season 2. So, like I said, just take all this, like, stuff with a grain of salt. I'm, fingers crossed, hoping for a season 2. Like, I also base this on like the Wikipedia stuff that shows me that nothing's been official, because if you look, it just says what's today, the 17th. It says like September 17th is like the final episode aired. So like nothing officially has been decided yet. So it'll probably be a little while before we get some official clarity on that. So just like I said, keep that all in mind. So, but it might be a while before we get more news. And even if we do get a second season, it depends on like how far they're into production now. Are they just starting out? Have they been into it a little bit? You know, animation takes a while. You know, it depends. I really like this story. I'm interested to see where it goes. I'll hold off on the whole like if this is all we get because of the kind of leak of potential season 2. So I'm interested to see where the story goes next and how it plays out structurally, considering like they're kind of in the hiding capital. And I'm like, is that just going to be like your main hub now and you just kind of journey out from there, but Luna's always going to stay behind? Because I was so curious to see like how that would, like I said, play out with Luna back with his mom and everything. So we'll see how that all shapes up and plays out potentially in the future. I'm excited to see, you know, whether there is an anime second season or not. There's still always going to be the manga you can read too. Granted, there's not that many like official translations, like apparently, like I think it's still pretty, like very few of the volumes have been like officially translated, so do just kind of keep that in mind as well. But yes, I'm sorry at this point in time, I've just been rambling. Like, hell of a series to kind of come out of nowhere. I didn't know what to fully expect going into it, and I've loved the journey and this like the style of this like interesting dark fantasy. I'm excited to potentially continue forward in whatever fashion that may be. But yes, I'm done talking. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.